just let us know, Alex.
It should take maybe 10, 15 seconds. We're live.
We're going to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Secretary, call the roll, please, of the Dyer Stormwater Board staff for the April 15th, 2020 meeting.
Kyle.
Kyle.
Ron.
Present. Please note that Matt Shanks is not present this evening. We have the town manager, the attorney for the Stormwater Board, the representative of the engineering firm for Christopher Burke, Brian Lane, Mary Tanis from the town council, and Frank. Frank's our electronic wizard here. He's going to see us through all these electronic issues that we have. Fourth item on the agenda is election of officers. Again, without Matt here, I'm not sure we can have it.
I would suggest you defer that item to the next meeting.
With the acceptance of Kyle, I will
Ask would make a motion to defer it.
I motion to defer it.
motion made to defer the election of officers for the Dyer Stormwater Board to the May meeting. I'm not sure what that date is. I don't have
I
it.
believe it's on the 15th.
I've got my phone off, so
Or is that 20?
will it work with my iPad? Can I put my iPad on?
20th. 20th May.
20th.
May 20th.
Stormwater Board meeting at 6 p.m. May 20th. Yes, that's what my agenda shows, or my calendar shows. Moving on to item 5.
1 minute. You got to second the motion, take a vote.
Oh, we do? With only 2 of us here? Okay.
You can second it.
All right. All those in favor of deferring the election of officers from tonight's meeting to the Stormwater Board meeting of May 20th, 2020, indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion is carried. Item 5 on the consent agenda. Item 1 of 5, approval of the February 19th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. I'm not sure we can even do that this evening, so I'll ask for a motion to defer the approval of the February 19th, 2020 regular meeting minutes to the May 20th Stormwater Board meeting.
I move to defer that to the next meeting, the regular meeting minutes.
And I'll
Approval.
second. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
So the February 19th of 2020 regular meeting minutes are deferred also to the April or the May 20th meeting. There's too many 20s in there. Claims for the period 2/18/20 through 3/17/20 in the amount of $714,681.25. Can Kyle participate in the approval of those claims?
You can.
So Kyle, in your packet, and I'm sure you received it by email, you had a listing called the Stormwater Board docket.
Mhm.
And in that docket is a listing of the payments that have been made to various accounts in the period that I mentioned by funds available to the Stormwater Board. In the amount of $714,681.25. Would you like to make a motion that we accept that docket and pay those bills?
I accept the notion to accept that amount.
They can go through those claims.
Motion to approve those claims, yes.
Any discussion on those claim items? I would point out that the major item is $402,878.43, which I assume is every penny that was in the
It's pretty close.
construction fee has been transferred over to pay the Harrison Avenue. Yeah. And the 72,000 and 71,000. I understand one of those as being the share of the stormwater board for the construction management, but I don't understand both of them. Why are there two there? One is for 71,092 and the other is for 72,216.
I will look and report back to you. It's obviously a duplicate.
Well, I thought it might be a duplicate too, but the numbers are different. So I,
Could be one paying back the design stuff, and the other one going forward. I don't know.
all right, well,
I'll look into that. Huh? It's right there. Well, yeah, I guess. Over claim.
Purell on there too. Other than that, I didn't have any other questions on that docket. Not in there. Huh? Well, then we wait for an explanation, and if there's
Maybe it's
if there's an adjustment that needs to be made next month on this issue, then we can make that adjustment next month. So I'll go ahead and ask. I'll call the question on. I did second it. I'm calling a question on the payment of the docket, stormwater board docket from 2/18/2020 to 3/17 of 2020 in the amount of $714, $681.25. $714,681.25. All those in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is made to pay the claims. There's also another claims docket for the period 3/19/20 through 4/9/20 in the amount of $53,901.67. Do I hear a motion that the stormwater board docket in that time frame be approved?
I move to approve the docket amount during that time frame.
I second that. Any question or discussion on any of the items on that docket? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of paying the stormwater board docket dated 3/19/2020 through 4/9/2020 in the amount of $53,901.67 indicate so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I would point out that there's a fund balance report in there associated with that you probably have, Kyle. So, yeah, those are the various fund accounts, the basic fund accounts that are attributable to the stormwater board, and the beginning cash balance in those individual accounts, the amount of money that was taken into those accounts, the amount of money that was taken out of those accounts, and the balance ending at the end of that period. And that is for 2/29/2020. There's probably one in here for a later date too, but maybe not, because the timing is not always
Yes,
the same for paying of the bills.
there's one for March.
Is there?
Yeah, we have one for March as well.
No, you're right. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. All right, anyway, that's just a quick explanation. That tells you how much money we've got, where it's at, how it's been, where it's been spent, not how necessarily. On that report, and I unfortunately, I don't have it with me, but it seems to me that there should have been a dispersal. Now, maybe not. The construction fund is shown as $412,024.43. I'm not sure that's the same number. I know I had a question on it. Yeah. Shows the beginning cash balance of $412,024.43, a dispersal of $412,024.43, but on the docket for that same period, we only dispersed $402,878.43. So there's like a $10,000 difference. I'm not sure where the 10,000 is at. I'll take it if nobody else wants it. Just a question. And I don't see another dispersion that matches up with that. So somewhere there's $10,000, maybe.
Depends on the docket. Ron, also in the docket, the date in which the docket ran.
Yeah, it could be.
And because those are calendar month, the fund reports. So if it's skewed in either direction, then it can change the total.
I would have
I'm
thought
not saying that's it.
the fund report would be behind the docket, though. If anything, the fund report would kind of come after you take the money out of the docket, and then you reflect it in the funds report. That's the way I would think the timing would be that way anyway, but maybe not.
We'll take a
So
look.
when I look at the dispersal of those funds on the docket, which is less than what the fund balance shows, it just doesn't seem right.
We'll take a look at it.
Yeah,
Ron,
I don't want to belabor it. Monthly financial reports, Kyle, in your summary, you'll find a list of appropriation reports, which I'm sure you probably had a chance to look at. I don't know if you have any questions on them. If you do, if you could ask them now, or if you want to wait until next month. The fact that you can generate questions on this report, it's a kind of a line item by line item summary of where all of the funds went in the various accounts. So if you look at page 1 of 6 on the February report, you'll see on the first page 625 is the prefix to all of those expenses. Continues on to page 2, goes on to page 3, about 2/3 of the way down. Those are all of the expenses and a summary of the accounts, expenditures, receipts for that particular fund, Fund 625, storm operating budget. And so you will have each one of these funds that are listed on the fund balance report, which is like 7. Each one of those should appear on that report and give you a summary of where the expenses were paid, and then it's consolidated, typically consolidated in the I think I'm still right. I know that's changed, but it's consolidated in the docket to some extent, and then consolidated even more on the summary report by fund. But it'll take a little study to get used to the way it's presented, but I think you'll find it logical and it flows through. Then you'll find another one just like it for March. So you've got one, you've got a appropriation report summary for February. It's got the blue lines that to help guys like me go from one side of the page to the other without crossing columns. You have any questions on any of those?
No, it's pretty clear.
All right,
Appreciate that.
we'll move on. Director of Stormwater's report.
I just got a couple things to announce. The beavers that we've been talking about the last couple meetings, it was on this last docket. We have had 3 removed. We had 2 that you just paid for on this docket, and then 1 more just got removed. So we opened that up, and we're going to watch it to make sure that there's no more beavers there. Public Works is watching that. So as of now, that's been taken care of. The other thing is on the backyards. We do some backyard projects every year. We didn't do any last year, but we usually do some. And I got a big list right now, and it's going out to a couple people for some pricing. Ron got me a name of a person who I hope last year I had talked to him too, and he never ended up giving me some numbers.
Well, he got
Now I
I
think
think
he's
he was
ready.
afraid.
Yeah, he was. So he sounds like he's ready. So I'll be getting those prices together.
I
And
think he's a very good guy. He's really hard work. I think he'll give you some good prices.
that's good. And
I
then
mean, I don't have any stake in it, but he does work for the Property Owners Association at Dyer, and he's been the best guy we've had out there in all the years I've been out there. He's really on it. He's got good equipment. He's got some good guys working for him, so I think he can be helpful. He's a landscaper as well.
good, nice. The last thing I have, Hart Street Bridge was a Lake County project. The bridge replacement's going on, but there was also some stabilization that just got done. And I took some pictures, and I'm just going to pass it around so everyone could see what the finished product looks like. Looks really nice. Turned out good.
I'll point out to the secretary in the February minutes. You probably don't have a copy of this, but it's showing a Gabion basket. One of my comments on the minutes was you called it a GAM or something basket. Gamboni. You might want to fix that word. It's Gabion, Gabion.
The nice thing is you can see in the pictures, they built that little road. So now Lake County can use that road to come down to snag logs and stuff to get out. So that's going to be nice.
We call it when the bridge is done at Hart Street. When the bridge is done at Hart Street, there'll be 2 piers where there are no piers right now. And so I want to make sure there's good access if you get any trees stuck there.
This is also a good example of some of the other construction that would be done as part of the 2-stage ditch. Isn't this, in some of it, going to look like this?
Right. So if you look above the Gabions in the second picture,
Yeah.
you can't see it very well, but they're
Tiered grass.
right. They're coir roll or the rolls there that come called burrito racks. But they're racks of soil lifts that each one goes back into the ground, and those would definitely be used on a 2-stage ditch. It wouldn't be as much riprap, but certainly would be more of those things.
There were some baskets too in some sections, weren't there?
Right. Especially,
So you kind of got everything represented here. You got the plain grassy area at the high point. You got the wraps kind of partway down the slope. Then you've got, the stone, and then you've got the baskets. So a little bit of a picture.
I will bring you some pictures, Ron, though. They did similar work, as you know, of these Gabions down by Public Works. And now years later, the way they look, they're kind of
can't even
hidden.
tell
You
they're
can't
there.
even tell because grass is growing and stuff like that. And, I mean, I personally like when that happens because it looks a lot more natural, but you still got the strength behind
Same
it.
way at 213th by the Baptist Church.
Yes.
In that section. They also use baskets.
And they just finished one at Kyleman, which I'm going to be getting some pictures to show you too. That's
Anything
all I have.
else?
That's all I have right now.
Cal, you have any questions?
No, I just that's what I was wondering about the road. Saw that. Now there's going to be signs to keep kids and all that stuff out of this, throwing rocks into the water.
No.
I mean,
No.
Even if
We'll
you put
cover our
signs
end on that,
We just
so no
gotta
one.
we do have to watch that because that is a thing at Pheasant Hills Pond when they did that
Yeah.
over the fest. I would be out there and I'd see people and I'd ask them, hey, we're trying to protect.
Yeah,
Just got to
absolutely.
educate people,
Yeah,
to let them know it's there for protection.
They did a bank restoration behind my house on Hart Ditch with a similar look to this.
Mhm.
And I'm out there cutting my grass and I hear this rushing water and it's, middle of the summer. And I turned off the mower and I went down and the creek was 4 feet higher, the lot next to me than it was behind my house. And that's because the kids had taken all the stones that the county had put in there and built a dam across Hart Ditch and raised the level. And evidently, when I went back there later, using it to swim, they're using the. So I hired a couple of kids to come in and put them all back.
Oh my.
And Kyle,
So it's a nuisance in the sense that it's going to be there and kids are going to figure out a way to use it.
the Hart Ditch is a regulated county. The county's responsibility.
Okay.
So we work with doing our share of work.
Well, they did a good job because there was very little inconvenience living south of there, having to go through there every day. I think they did a pretty good job.
It's coming.
Oh, it's coming. Well, we'll wait till May for that one, right? That's
We'll go north.
I'm sorry, anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, consulting engineers report, Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, regarding my report, everything that I had to talk about is in either old business or pending issues I can talk about later, or I can go through it now. Whatever your pleasure is.
I'll leave it up to you. You got the floor.
I'll wait until it comes up later in the
All
agenda.
right.
The
So
only thing
there's-
I'd add is that we did include 3 pictures of Northgate monitoring. Continue to do that.
You got to mention the charts that you have for Northgate. You want to, because I don't see it anywhere else on the agenda.
Sorry. Just
Oh, no, yes, it is, all the way down to the bottom. Pending issues, Northgate, sorry. We'll do it later.
Okay.
Town council liaison report.
When I was elected in 2011, one of the main issues that we had in Dyer was flooding. And I know the Stormwater Board had taken some action previous to that, putting up the wall and so forth. But since then, I really am proud of the fact that the Stormwater Board has cooperated with Little Cal and with the Surveyor's Office and obviously, because of our town manager, we've done so much work for flooding. And the residents really appreciate that. To the south, we don't worry about flooding anymore. And now we're looking at places in Northgate and try to assist with that. So it really is a good thing for Dyer because we followed through with actions about one of the things that we had talked about previously. What my question is, with the governor's executive order, will our community crossings funds be influenced by that, or?
We've received the first round of community crossing funds. We're in the midst of getting contracts. We don't know what's going to happen to the September round,
Okay,
but that is a road project, September, not a storm project.
right.
So we've gotten, the Harrison Avenue is primarily storm. The Osage project, which is this year's community crossing money, storm essentially gets a free ride because it's all street related, so it's all grant eligible. So there's actually no money coming out of storm resources for that. Conserves our capital projects.
Okay, that's good. And that's all.
All right, any questions for
No.
Ms. Dennis? Thank you. Item 4 under 6 is activity report from Public Works. Kyle, it would look something like this. And you'll get used to seeing it. It's basically a summary of the hours spent. If you look to the left, you'll see funds, storm, utilities, motor vehicles, flush utilities, etc. in the first column. That is how the Department of Public Works use their labor on behalf of each one of the utilities. And it's summarized in various levels. You see the first, on page 1, it's February of 2020. And then January of 2020, all the way through the year to date. It says December, but obviously we haven't made it to December. So it's just a summary through March. And the big item that I always look at is the very bottom of that page. It says funds, storm, number of employees is total of 27. But the storm board is only really accounting for 2.7 employees. So about 10% of the employees.
Three-year budget for the year.
Yeah, we're budgeted for 3. So they're hitting, last year I think they hit 3.2. And as things fire up this year, I suspect that that'll increase a little bit, but been pretty consistent around 3 employees. And there's further detail of what some of the stuff that they do, streets and infrastructure that could be applied to storm, water treatment, wastewater treatment administration. We'll get some of the administration hours, but we won't get, and we might even get some of the building services. We probably get done for part of the light bill and gas bill. I'm not quite sure. But it's a summary of all of the activities. And you've got the year-to-date on the last page. Just an overview to keep the storm board appraised. Since we pay a goodly part of the salaries and costs of the operation of the Public Department of Public Works, that's a summary to show us where the money went, how it's being used. Do you have any questions on that report?
No, it's very clean, very good report.
Get used to it. Under old business, the Central Park Fire Station review of stormwater plans. Thomas?
Yes, we did a review of Robinson's submittal for Central Park. If you recall, for the last 10 years, we've run a accounting table of the storage that's available in Central Park, because when they originally built the storage, it far exceeded what they're required to have. So as they made improvements, we started deducting from the available storage. They're proposing to do a lot of work right now with what their plan is, but there's one detention pond that won't go in until later. The fire station is supposed to go in, additional park improvements are supposed to go in, and the net result is until that future pond 2 goes in, they're going to be about 3 acre-feet short. Pond 2, when it does go in, will provide 4.6 acre-feet, so they'll have a surplus again. You know, it's a matter of timing, and the park board can't do it right now. Unlike a developer where we wouldn't normally recommend going forward with a shortage, we know the park department isn't going anywhere. Our recommendation is to approve it as provided that there will be a shortage until pond 2 is built.
Kyle, just a little further explanation. If you go to page 2, see a bunch of charts.
Yeah.
The table 2, the site detention summary, is a summarization of the available stormwater detention storage on the park site as it currently exists. All the way over to the right, starting at the very top, there was 4.6, 2010, there was 4.6 acre feet, and then that was increased to 5.1 in January of 2012. We put in a baseball complex. It required, for that installation, that we use 1.1 acre feet. So 1.1 from the 5.1 brought us down now to 4 acre feet, and so on down the whole chart. You have some required that was deducted from the available, and some that was added. For example, when we adjusted the high water level difference, we picked up 7/800ths of an acre foot of storage. So that took the, in the last right column to the right, it took the 2.71 acre feet available up to 3.49 because we added 0.78 and so on all the way down. Add, subtract as the park developed. Down to the very bottom where the Central Park improvements that are current require 7.5 acre feet, but we only have 5.27. So that gives you a deficiency of 2.23. There were some additional improvements made that added 3/4 of an acre foot. I'm sorry, they took away 3/4 of an acre foot, so that took it up to 2.98. So the deficiency is about 3 acre feet. The future pond that's coming on will add somewhere between 4.6 and 11. We know that's going to happen. I recommend that we give this our approval.
I move to motion the approval for the plan.
Motion is made, and I'll second it, to accept the recommendation of Christopher Burke that the Central Park improvements for the town of Dyer, which have been reviewed by Christopher Burke, be accepted and passed forward to the Plan Commission, I presume, that we accept it as presented. Do I hear a motion?
Kyle moved to.
You Move that, okay, then I second it. So any other further discussion?
No.
All those in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I would add also that this Central Park discharges into the pond at Briar Creek, Briar Crossing, and that pond does have some excess capacity in it. So we're not really deficient 2.98. I don't exactly know what it is, but I think there's at least an acre foot of extra space in the Briar Crossing pond. So it's, you're really, really close here. Stormwater review for Briar Ridge Country Club Unit 19 PUD of 10 lots. I don't have anything other than the report from Christopher Burke. I could go on for 2 hours on this, maybe more than that, but the issue basically on the approval of the Briar Country Club Unit 19 PUD is the fact that we don't have a clue, well, maybe we have a clue, but that's about all, of the real detention, stormwater detention capacity in Briar Ridge. Not from day one. The very first time that they came to us for an expansion, we asked for the data of what the existing capacity of Briar Ridge was, and we never really got it. We find that this board finally spent our money to make a determination of what we thought the on-site storage capacity was. Mr. Burke went back to the country club and asked them what the storage was in the creek, if my memory serves me correct, and give us the calculations again. Instead, they came back with a long letter from Mr. Lindley, a 2-page letter from Mr. Lindley saying, why are we even asking this? Don't you know that Briar Ridge has done the best job that anybody in the world could do for storing stormwater? So why are you even questioning it? So we questioned it again. In spite of his lengthy letter, we did get out of them that they thought there were 50 acre feet of storage, if my memory serves me correct, Thomas, by them increasing the volume, supposedly increasing the volume by widening Art Ditch. So to this day, we have not seen any real adherence to our standards of what they are proposing to do relative to what was originally approved. And so my position is, until we see that, how do we know that we're really living up to our own standards? Plus, in addition to that, we know that since the original design and acceptance of the stormwater plans for Briar Ridge were approved by the town, 1987, that order, mid-80s, that we have collected data on storms that have occurred in that period, from that period to now, that are substantially greater in magnitude than what was potentially and probably used for the original design. Significantly different. As I recall, the letter of map revision that was written for changing the firm maps had a maximum flow rate of about 2,000 cubic feet per second. Thomas, my memory correct on
Right.
that? We now know that at 2,000 feet per second, that's a much, much smaller storm. A much bigger storm, a typical storm, the 2008 storm, the flow capacity was 3,000 plus cubic feet per second at the confluence of Hart Ditch and Dyer Sherrill Ditch. So the data that we have that we've been using and imposing on other people that have come to us for stormwater retention, like Symphony and Cedarhurst and Docks and the medical center and the Baptist church, they've all had to comply with the higher flow rates, higher water surface elevations that were created in Hart Ditch by the data that we now have on the storms that have occurred since then. So I believe that needs to be imposed on Briar Ridge. Briar Ridge has had some major flooding in 2007, 2008, and even since then. There have been damage inside of Briar Ridge. Briar Ridge and the adjoining properties that drain into it, like Central Park, like Briar Crossing, that surface area represents about 20% of the town of Dyer. It's hard to imagine, but that's what it is. Dyer's got about 6.7 square miles. Briar Ridge plus the park, plus those things that drain through the park and Briar Crossing and into Briar Ridge and become part of the infrastructure and use the infrastructure of Briar Ridge is about 1.2 square miles. That's about 17 or 18% of the surface area of the town of Dyer. So it's not a small issue. It's a lot of people affected upstream and downstream. So I don't think we just blow this off. It's not like we're only dealing with 10 lots. We're dealing with impact on upstream and downstream. And so I believe we should have a solid database for Briar Ridge. I don't personally see why it should be a big deal if the Lindley report was prepared like it most likely was with all that data, and all you have to do is adjust it. So I think what Thomas is asking for here, and what we asked for back in 2017, 3 years ago, we placed a condition. So I don't see why we want to give another conditional approval on this, because we've already imposed the conditions 3 years ago, and they haven't been met. So,
President, can I just say,
sure, yeah,
and this is for Kyle, Briar Ridge filed an application to subdivide 10 lots in Briar Ridge, as you know. That is in front of the Plan Commission. And in order for the Plan Commission to act on that petition, there has to be a review concerning the size of the lots and all three utilities: sanitary, water, and stormwater. And each one of those utilities has to give approval of that subdivision plat. At this point, water and sanitary have given that approval, but stormwater has not given that approval. So that what Ron's referring to is, in order for stormwater to even consider giving the approval, this study has to be done. And Thomas made a recommendation in 2017.
on our behalf, he made that recommendation. We both of them,
And so at this point, the matter's in front of the Plan Commission. However, the Plan Commission has received a request from Briar Ridge to defer the public hearing on it, which is set for next Monday, and primarily because of the fact of Thomas's recommendation for a study at this point in time. So I think on the public record that a motion should be made to require Briar Ridge to complete a comprehensive study for stormwater management at Briar Ridge as recommended in 2017.
very well worded.
So you could say so moved. You could just say so moved.
So move. I was starting to write that down, but absolutely. I recommend,
And I'll second that. In comments to that, the current 10 lot subdivision that's being sought, there are some issues there in addition to the fact that we don't understand what the stormwater regime of the entire space is. Those two ladies that were here, one of them has been on, I don't know which one is Diane, but one of them was a Diane. Okay, because I'd never met her before, but I've been on the phone with her a number of times. And she lives right at the back of the cart shed, if you're familiar with Briar Ridge. Her lot is right there, and she tells me that their backyards in that area always flood. I've been there when I had picking up a cart for an outing or something, and squish, 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 squish. So I know that area floods. The street floods. They're proposing to put additional stormwater into one of the runoff lines that run out of Dyer into Sherrville. That goes through an easement. So my question to our attorney is, because it goes through an easement and because we're now changing the volume from what it was originally approved at in an easement, does that easement have to be reapproved?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it allows for the flow.
Well, obviously it doesn't because it's floods.
Well, no, but it could be used for stormwater purposes. That's all that's required.
Okay, so the easement there is not contingent on its effectiveness.
No, let me just put one asterisk down. I'd have to look at the actual easement, but the normal easements I've seen over there they are for utilities, including sanitary water, stormwater, without any reference to volume.
Yeah, okay. The thing that caught me when I read this was in the event the downstream receiving channel or storm sewer system is inadequate to accommodate the post-developed release rate provided above, and that's another part of this, then the allowable release rate shall be reduced because the capacity of the receiving downstream channel or storm sewer system. Additionally, detention as determined by the stormwater board shall be required to store that portion of the runoff exceeding the capacity of the receiving storm sewer or water courses. Such downstream restrictions are suspected, the stormwater board may require analysis to determine the receiving stream's downstream capacity. And then it goes on to talk about any restrictions or whatever. So it seems like from our own ordinance that we require to be sure that when you're discharging off-site, that we can't just say, well, here, we're giving you this. We got to be sure that the off-site condition.
I think that's part of the approval process, to say the existing easement, while it allows stormwater, is inadequate to handle.
Yeah, that in summary, that's correct. That's what it appears. We don't have any calculations on that either.
No.
We don't have any data that says that 12-inch line is okay for all the space that it's draining, except the input from the people that live there that say their street floods and the backyards flood, and so now we're adding more stormwater into it. So I would just simply point that out. Any other question or discussion on the fact that our motion is to require the approval of a stormwater study for Briar Ridge? That is, Briar Ridge is 540.17 acres. Any other question or discussion on that motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That's issue is quite a big issue right now in Briar Ridge.
Well,
I don't-
I think it's very important, not because of the issue in front of us right now only, but for the future.
Oh, yeah.
They may want to develop a lot more over there, and if they do, we need to know the impact. We do.
We need a baseline. We don't have it. We also gave them a credit and
Some years ago.
based on the detention volume, based on the two units that we have available to give them, not quality, but quantity and detention, off-site detention. They can discharge directly, and we gave them a credit, and I really did think we did it wrong. And I'm especially interested now to maybe go back and take a look at that there may be some benefits to them, actually. Maybe to their benefit. Because as they develop the property, they have less and less area that they're responsible for in terms of the credit. But now that falls back into the bailiwick of the individual homeowner once it's transferred from the golf course into the individual lot. So the area that is the responsible area for the golf course is actually getting reduced. But at the same time, they're reducing the storage. So there's, I have no idea where it's at.
I think once we have the study and Thomas has analyzed it, we should relook at that.
Yeah, we should.
Credits we gave them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was based on the data we had at that.
It was, and we created the data. As a matter of fact, we generated the data.
2005, 2006.
Yes.
We gave it. But now that's early.
New business bid award for Osage and Laurel.
Just an informational item. All the storm-related stuff, my understanding is grant eligible. So the stormwater share is being paid out of the 2019 GO bond issue. So that's a good project.
It's always good when somebody else pays for it.
That's right. You guys are clear now.
Plan for that area there is we'll start with underground this year is what we're thinking. And then finish up the road work.
A lot of it depends on the timing from the state. Release of the money going quicker than I thought. But it has to go through state and they're working at home, so it could be 6 weeks. But we designed it to do half and half.
I can send you, I'll send you some projects. So you know.
So this is just a more or less an information
Yeah.
piece.
When I originally wrote it, we thought everything was able to be put into the grant. If we have any change orders that storm related to come back later.
You have the documents.
Yeah, I
Do
do.
you have any questions at this point? Again, it's something that you're catching up on, so.
3-year-old project, I like it to come to the term of the table. Important project, yeah. 2.6 million.
All right, I assume the next item, construction observation, is with regard to this memo.
Yeah, just a brief memo. Franklin, I coming across. I can't.
A meeting or so ago, it was brought up at the end of the meeting by one of the council members to raise the issue as to whether or not the town should consider in-house construction observation versus our current practice of using all of our consulting engineers to do that. I personally think we're doing obviously the best business practice, but I need input from the respective boards who employ the engineers. So the utility board will get the same question in 10 days or 2 weeks whenever we meet. And I raise it to you now so I can relay that back to the council. I know in the past, long prior to my time, we've done some in-house inspection and it doesn't work out very well. It didn't here and it hasn't in other places, you know. And if you actually have a civil engineer on staff, that person still coordinates with the engineering firm. But I'll leave it to you to make any comments.
Well, if you don't mind, from my perspective, having been and owned a consulting engineering company, been a consulting engineer, been a field engineer, been in all those positions, there's certain ramifications between separating the design function of a project and the construction function of a project. And my experience over 50 years is that every time you separate the construction management from the design engineering firm, you're exactly right, there's going to be heads knocking. There's going to be issues that are going to come up. The design firm will say, well, you know, you didn't give me a chance to look at it. So you don't blame me. If I'd have been on the site, I would have fixed it right then and there, and I would have fixed it this way. Now you want to come back and tell me that I did it wrong. Maybe I did do it wrong, but you didn't give me a chance to fix it. And as a designer, you went ahead and redesigned it without my input, without my basis. So, you know, give me the bowl so I can dip my hands in the water. I'm not responsible for it. I do believe personally that it's a Pascal's wager to put somebody else on the project that didn't design it. Maybe you're going to get a good outcome, and maybe you'll save some money this time and next time and the next time. But when you get into trouble, and you get into the head knocking between the contractor, the design engineer, and the construction manager, who's really not really managing anything other than the progress of the job and representing the owner and looking at the specification that was written. He's not responsible for construction means and methods. That's not part of his duty. Once those things get out of sync, it's really a major problem to get back. And I would highly recommend that we continue to use the same engineering firm that did the design to do the construction management.
I'd like to give you a homework assignment to put that in writing.
Okay, I will.
Because that was my hope. I mean, basically it was, here's the question, discuss, you discussed it, and but I think the council's got to hear from.
Kyle, do you disagree?
No, I would tend to agree. I mean, that makes sense as far as the, two different parties. I would agree with that. I mean, it's like that
there's so
brother
many
thing.
issues that the design engineer loses control over to represent his design if he's not there to, you can't get everything on a piece of paper. Unfortunately, you just can't do it. Yeah, Barron's Manali is a good example. You just, so those things that you can't get on a piece of paper, if you have a guy that was there that represents what the thought was that went into the design, and something comes up in the field, he said, oh yeah, well, let's do this and this and this. We can think. You never hear about it, and it probably never costs you. On the other hand, when you got a separate field representative, they're kind of out there trying to make a name for themselves in addition. So it's you immediately have a conflict. But I'll be happy to write something out.
Okay, then we'll put something together.
Makes sense.
You know what helps too, Ron, on that, that I've learned over the years having them do that is they deal with residents a lot too.
Right.
So that takes a lot of stress off people having, I mean, I still talk to a lot of residents, but it takes a lot of stress off when he's out there every day and they're coming out, asking him a question, and then he answers it and they're okay, and they go back and they don't have to make that call because they were, assured by that person. So that really helps a lot.
I know some towns do have an in-house engineer, and the engineer does coordinate and supervise some of the projects, but usually they're typically much smaller, things that are, I don't want to call them nuisances, but, we need a repair on the storm sewer at the corner of First and Main, and so we got to rip, and while we're doing that, let's expand the sewer size. So it's, it's a $50,000 project. Maybe you make a drawing for it. There I can see the town engaging something like that. But on the major projects, and our projects are typically pretty big, I think we got to have good coverage.
I mean, it's from the council perspective. When you hire a consulting engineer, you're buying a capacity of a firm, and you're never going to have that capacity in house. Even I've employed civil engineers and that type of stuff. You still need the design firm and hold them accountable and keep things moving. You might have a guy act as a project manager, which is a little different than construction observation. That's a different
coordination role.
Yeah. But
I always say, though, there's no such thing as a civil engineer. It has nothing to do with their technical capabilities.
Yeah. What should we call them then, Ron? What should we call those people? Thank you. We'll put something together jointly and go.
All right. Be glad to.
And I would say that's what led to success with Barron's Manali, because that whole project was handled so well.
Well, if you reflect back on Barron's Monopoly, I don't know that we ever ran over our budget. I don't know that we ever really ran over our schedule, except in the case of the wall, which was technical difficulties down on the ground that nobody anticipated. And the outcome is the outcome that we anticipated. And we did it over a period of time, piece by piece by piece. So it wasn't like we consolidated the whole project and assembled it and did it all at once. It was, you did this piece and then you did this piece, and they fit together pretty well. So it was a good example of project management that was done internally. Brian was certainly involved in it, Christopher Burke. I don't know if Frank was involved, and he probably was. There's been a number of people involved in that project from day one. So it goes back 20 years. That's where we developed, by the way, the one dig concept was in that project. Pending issues, two-stage ditch project. Anybody got anything to say on that?
I did just submit, we had to submit our reports for the Lake Michigan Coastal Program, and I just submitted that today. We haven't spent any money, of course, so it was an easy report, but that was submitted and they accepted it. So we'll have to send that, I think, quarterly. So we got it set up now. We'll just throw the numbers in. Be real easy.
Do we have any more idea whether or not Little Cal and the county and are going to support the project? Or is it just going to be
I think not till,
So the county's going to support the project. The county will definitely support the project. They're still all for it. The Little Cal has made it very clear that their focus is on Longwood and not the two-stage ditch. That didn't stop us from submitting a formal application to the Little Cal, which was submitted for their March meeting. There were 7 of them submitted. They only took 5 of them, and ours and two-stage ditch and the Maryville project were put off till April meeting. So they haven't formally acted on it. Whether or not they formally act on it in April, I don't know. But we still have submitted saying, here's the dollar amount, here's what we're requesting. So we'll see.
What about the hospital? Has anybody talked with the hospital?
I talked
stayed
to
in contact with their attorney, and we're waiting to see where the financing is coming from.
I stayed in touch with Tom. Last name escaped me. No, the head of engineering there. And he asked me pretty much every month what's going on. So they're still very interested.
Well, they should be.
Yeah.
Well, they get the most benefit out of it, actually.
And we did find out, Mary did, she came in that house, the farmer house on the corner, the lady had passed. And whoever lives upstairs isn't her daughter. Her daughter lives there and isn't attached to the house. And she would be, because before we talked about it, someone may not be one to sell. But so I do have a question on that. If you recall, we put in for a grant last year, a $100,000 grant, and we deferred it. We also put in for a $592,000 grant. Just all total was originally about 3.9 million, and now it's scaled back to probably about 3.2 million, I believe. Yeah. So we put in for a $592,000 grant. We did not get it. We were told everything we put in was great, just the amount of funds that were requested was much farther higher than they could handle. Any reason not to resubmit? There's not going to be a lot of work on our part.
Well, in lieu of resubmitting, what are the terms of the grant? Do we have to match that by 50%, 100%?
The 592, you have to do 50%, but we are far exceeded that. So that would.
Well, so what I'm questioning is, can we define some project in there that's beneficial that we could spend $100,000 on and take the $100,000 grant and get the $200,000 of the benefit out of it and take advantage of the grant without having to resubmit?
So we could certainly, the $100,000 grant that's already been approved.
We already have that.
Yeah, I know, but
We
that's in
have it
jeopardy if
theory.
we don't.
No, we can get an extension on it. It's not in jeopardy.
But we could also, we also looked at doing just the South Bank at a smaller scale, which is, I think was about $450,000.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm coming around
Yes,
to.
we could just do a portion of that and call that our project for now.
And take the 100,000 and not have to resubmit. Can we look at that?
I don't think we have to resubmit for the 100. It's for an additional amount of money.
Yeah, he wants to resubmit for the 490.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm concerned about the 100,000 that we.
No, that we get to keep. We just got to write a letter for extension.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we're not going to lose. We're going to able to extend that with simple communication with.
But any reason not to resubmit for 592?
No,
And
I think we should.
Because a lot of people really, they like, we had a post meeting on that and they really liked the project. I mean, two-stage ditch is the big thing right now, what everyone wants. I think it's a good shot that we would get.
Thomas, are the plans shovel ready, or what position are the plans in?
They're concept, so
Okay,
it's a matter of a couple months they could be, they have plans for total contract.
you know, they're,
I know where you're going with this.
yeah, but I'm also going to tell you from what I think they're not going to get to the infrastructure project that they've been talking about 3 weeks ago. I think they're realizing it's more of an individual need than a boost of that type of economy like we had back in '08. But the key is having the project pretty close to being shovel ready, because there's something else may pop up. There may be some other funding aside from a big national infrastructure and stuff like that. So as long as we're 60, 90 days away, I think that's a good thing. So I think we should apply for the 400,000, the 492, keep that in the hopper and just keep moving along. And then we can figure out a way, because the way I've been looking at it since we talked a couple months ago is, how do we do exactly what you said? How do we knock off $500,000 at a time or something like that?
Well, this project would lend itself because it's got a north bank, a
Yeah.
south bank, it's got an east bank, it's got a west bank.
We get the hospital,
it's got all pieces and
get
parts.
into their share and do that, and that's a project by itself. And we can utilize TIF dollars on this because it does benefit the TIF. And we got a lot of claims on TIF dollars, but if it's not millions of dollars, there's always, I can find $500,000 for a one-time shot and do things like that. We got money budgeted for some of those things. So I think we should keep pursuing it.
Well, is making a point to ask Thomas to take a look at the project and see how many parcels he can break it down into that makes sense.
I think you did that once.
We
didn't
did,
you?
we had it down to 4, just
Yeah.
as you said, four projects,
You know,
more or less.
kind of the four corners.
Yeah.
Right, it was the comp storage, east of, so it's west of Hart Street. It was the 3 projects. It was the Northern Bank, Southern Bank. We had 3 projects.
I thought we had I thought where the houses were, where the hospital was at, we could break that down into a project too.
That's what I call the west one.
You're calling that the west
The comp storage.
one. What's on the west bank, the southwest bank, across the creek from that?
That's done now. That's what the.
That's all just county. We're not doing anything else
Correct.
there. That's the piece that we looked at some pictures on.
Yeah.
So that piece doesn't require any further.
Correct.
Okay.
Why don't we bring that, we'll put something together for next month
Sure.
with some scenarios for you. And then we can consider that.
It's a great educational piece too. I mean, these kids would be a nice thing to have.
Well, it has many benefits, water profile for the hospital, gets the bank, that keeps them from having to sandbag and put temporary flood control up. It makes a nice area for recreation and so on and so on. So Sandy Ridge, I don't think there's really any discussion there.
No.
We're just more or less waiting to get that in line so that we can do something with it if we decide to do something with it. The exact acquisition of Longwood Country Club with the Little Canada River Basin. Anything to report there, Thomas?
An update since our last meeting. We prepared a proposal to do preliminary work, look at combining Longwood Golf Course with the Forest Reserve, the Will County Forest Reserve that they allowed us to use, and submitted it, and the Lil Cal is going to approve it at their April meeting. We went ahead and started work on it. We've flown the 3 sites that we talked about as example sites of what it could look like. One in Will County, one in DuPage County, and one in Lake County, Illinois. Those have been flown. We have walked the site, and we've actually started putting in more or less theoretical dams to see how much storage we can get throughout the golf course. We're at the point now where talking the modeling today, we're actually looking at trying to see what the benefits are. Are the benefits the same if I provide, for every acre foot I provide of storage, how does that compare to the storage from the reservoir? We knew what that was. We had that all those numbers. So now we're putting a model together, putting a dam in the hydraulic model and seeing if I put this much storage upstream, will it help? If I take some of the flow from the Longwood Golf Course and dam that up so it doesn't come into the ditch fast, how much will that help? So that's where we're at right now with the.
You got any feel for what the numbers might be?
Because we're just at that point. I know, all right. I have, we're not getting anywhere close to 2,000 acre feet. We're at the,
Are you getting close to 500?
yes. Yes.
Because that would be, to me, like, if we can't get 500 acre feet.
No, we're over that right now. The part I'm struggling with is there's some places where we're getting 20, 40 acre feet that only has 20 acres tributary to it. That doesn't do us any good.
Doesn't sound, yeah.
If we had 2 feet of springs, then we could use it, but
Yeah.
we don't want to deal with those springs.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to look at now. Can we break it up and get some more storage other places? But yes, we have a scenario where we're over 500 acres. Not a lot, but we're over.
And I've been in touch with the attorney for Will County Board District, and we discussed going forward with this project. Their feeling is they're kind of waiting to see what FERC comes up with in their study, and then our determination of whether we are willing to proceed with that at that point in time, and then we would put together.
You get any sense talking to these people whether or not they would consider any kind of excavation for additional storage that could be naturalized once it's excavated?
I think that they.
I mean, I got the impression the guy sitting next to me was obviously the manager of the Forest Preserve District or something. If you can't, he didn't even want the dirt that was in there anyway, because that wasn't the original dirt.
I really think it comes down to what it ultimately looks like in relation to maintaining the green space.
Well, yeah, and so I have a problem with why we can't, dig a hole and naturalize it. And so you don't even know it's a hole. I mean,
But I think
it's not
those
going to.
are some discussions that we can have down the line. As to what it is.
We're at the point right now where we're not doing really any earth moving other than creating a dam.
Yeah,
The
well,
next
that's
point-
that's the impression after I went home and thought about it. We're not going to get.
But they want us to come forward
Right.
with what our ideas are for this before they say yay or nay.
Right, but my next step is to get something that's substantial that benefits the Indiana communities, that are all the entities that are
Yeah.
involved with this, is to actually do some earth moving and get some more storage that doesn't just exist by putting up dams. So if that's what it takes, that's at least we come back with the answer of saying, hey, if we don't move earth, we just put up a dam.
Well, the other problem with the dam is it's not timely. It's not going to whack the top off of the peak storm. It's going to just occur as it occurs. It's not going to occur when you want it to occur.
It also requires maintenance.
Sure.
They're going to want us to pay for that.
Do you have any questions on that, Kyle? I know you.
No, I think maybe we can talk later, or,
Okay.
you and I together.
Long time ago.
Yeah, it's been around. That's another one's been around for 10 years, 12 years. Study of the regional pond. I may be the fly in the ointment there because I asked Thomas to give me a copy of it that I could look at, and I had a number of, I'm not Ernest Hemingway, but neither was the guy that wrote it.
Well stated.
Anyway, we're trying to make it as reasonably, it's a very complicated report.
Yeah, exactly. But it was well observed. You got a draft. You got a very rough draft.
It's a very complicated report, and there's a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff in it that's going to be hard to digest. And I know it's going to be probably handed off to the council and to make a decision on it. So you want to get the first best shot on it that you can in terms of ease of understanding. There's some real financial benefits that could be had from it. At least it appears that way from the preliminary report that I had a chance to look at.
That was the hope with Central Park. Same concept.
Yeah.
Well,
This could benefit Central Park too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't hurt, like I said, they put more water in Central Park. Yeah. Now, these are just down there, they're still working on this.
Yeah, I intended to hand it, my comments, any comments that I had off to him Monday, and Briar Ridge reared its ugly head. And that's about all I've been able to.
Yeah.
Northgate Ponds.
Only thing there is the new well charts that were provided. Kyle, these have been provided monthly since a year. No, July 2019. We were doing once a month. With one well monitor
These guys.
just north of the park.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry.
We see some orange fencing around it. And so we go out there once a month and get the readings that are taking every hour. Where the data is collected and we download it. And then so on the very first chart you see is the actual well level, what the readings are. The ground is at 617, which is the top of the graph. And then down below that is the heart ditch in black. And then the blue is precipitation. So you can see when we have precipitation events, the water level in the groundwater goes up. Next page, that was just for the month. The next page is since we did not go to March, this is kind of a March and April summary. And then the last page is the summary from the beginning. So it'll be July through present.
But what I take off of this is if you use grade as an average of 617, if you look at the brown line, I guess that's brown. Is that brown or pink? Whatever. We come up and practically come to the surface. So to use that space exclusively as storage, like we intended, to go down 3 or 4 feet, it doesn't seem to work. I mean, you can excavate it down. How far, Thomas, would you go?
We are looking at 4 feet down.
So you'd go down from 617 all the way down to 613?
Yeah, but most of the ground that we're looking at is 619, around 619 and a half. Where the well is a low spot, relatively low spot. I think that's part of the problem. But because when we actually looked at the study again for Northgate, we actually had geotechnical come out there and do 4 soil borings. And 3 of the soil borings showed groundwater slightly lower than what we're seeing, and 1 showed no groundwater for within 10 feet, which is odd. But we certainly, this graph has helped us show that we can't excavate 4 feet exuent to be a dry pond. That water will be used up by groundwater. Unless we do expensive.
It'll also make it unusable for anything else goodly, a large part of the time that you'd want to use it. I mean,
that's why we're doing the groundwater monitoring.
But you did propose putting in around the perimeter, I believe, under drain tile, and that under drain tile would dry it up maybe quicker so that it could be used for other things besides just detention.
Right.
I think that's probably where we're gonna wind up. You know, we're gonna wind up with maybe not 4 feet, but
right.
And some under drain around it, and it could be usable space for a goodly part of the summer or goodly part of the year. I don't know if you want to commit soccer fields to it necessarily, but it could be. By the way, I don't, this is not atypical of anywhere in Dyer. If you go to a lot of our ponds, you're going to find that you don't have to dig down very far from the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Any and all?
I'm checking right now. And we did not receive any public comments that were directed to public comments at townofdyer.com.
How many people you have on watching?
Alex, how many? We don't have any other participants in the Zoom meeting. Alex, in the YouTube meeting, I know we had 2 viewers before. You were one of them. What do we look like right now? Oh, I just. Okay, so we have one other outside of there's one other outside of you. There's 3. Okay, so we have 2 other viewers. We did receive a comment, Ron, it's up on your screen right now, from Councilman Eric Schultz.
Oh, okay. Appreciate it.
Do you want to?
Okay, this is from Eric Schultz at the public comment portion of our meeting. Good evening. I'd like to welcome Mr. Rizzo, the Storm Board, to the Storm Board. I'd also like to thank all who are participating in the Stormwater Board meeting this evening. These are difficult times, and I appreciate your dedication to the execution of our town's business. To Mr. Hunter, I thank you for your experience and expertise in the Briar Ridge stormwater issue. As a member of the Plan Commission, I appreciate your report to the Storm Board in the matter and will support the recommendation and decisions of the Stormwater Board on this issue. To all, thank you again for your participation. Please stay safe. Eric Schultz, Councilman Ward 2, Town of Dyer. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
There's no other comments received.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Take motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we flew out of here last time and didn't sign them.
Yeah.